Reading in spring 2022, my name is Stefan Heger. Psalm 78, Zabur 78. And there are 72 verses today, just like the 72 disciples Jesus sent out to heal the sick, raise the dead, proclaim the gospel. Freely you have received, freely give. So each verse is precious. Let's go through with me. My people, listen to my teaching. This is Asap, a psalm of Asap. Pay attention to what I say. I will open my mouth and tell stories. I will speak about things that were hidden. They happened a long time ago. We have heard about them and we know them. Our people who lived before us have told us about them. We won't hide them for our children. We will tell them to those who live after us. We will tell them about what the Lord has done, that it is worthy of praise. We will talk about his power and the wonderful things he has done. He gave laws to the people of Jacob. He gave Israel their law. He commanded our people who lived before us to teach his laws to their children. Then those born later would know his laws. Even their children yet to come would know them. And they in turn would tell their children. Then they would put their trust in God. They would not forget what he had done. They would obey his commands. They would not be like their people who lived before them. Those people were stubborn. They refused to obey God. Their hearts were not true to him. Their spirits were not faithful to him. The soldiers of Ephraim were armed with bows, but they ran away on the day of battle. Verse 10. They didn't keep the covenant God had made with them. They refused to live by his law. They forgot that he had done. They didn't remember the wonders he had shown them. He did miracles right in front of our people who lived long ago. At that time, they were living in the land of Egypt, in the area of Zoan. You know, this is a city on the Delta River of the Nile, Upper Nile River, bordering Ethiopia and Egypt. They lived there as slaves. Okay, let's read on verse 13. God parted the Red Sea and led them through it. He made the water stand up like a wall. He guided them with a cloud during the day. He led them with the light of a fire all night long. He broke the rocks open in the desert. He gave them as much water as there is in the oceans. He brought streams out of a rocky cliff. He made water flow down like rivers. But they continued to sin against him. In the desert, they refused to obey the Most High God. They were stubborn and they put God to the test. They ordered him to give him the food they longed for. They spoke against God. They said, can God put food on a table in the desert? When he struck the rock, the streams of water poured out. Huge amounts of water flowed down. But can he also give us food? Can he supply meat for his people? When the Lord heard that, they said he was very angry. His anger broke out like a fire against the people of Jacob. He became very angry with Israel. That was because they didn't believe in God. They didn't trust in his power to save them. But he gave a command to the skies above. He opened the doors of the heavens. He rained down manna for the people to eat. He gave them the grain of heaven. Mere men ate the bread of angels. He sent them all the food they could eat. The psalmist is emphasizing here it was a gift from God, from heaven. Heavenly bread. He made the east wind blow from the heavens. Every time, by his power, he caused the south wind to blow. He rained meat down from them like dust. He sent them birds like sand on the seashore. He made the birds come down inside their camp. The birds fell all around their tents. People ate until they had more than enough. He gave them what they had longed for. But even before they had finished eating, God acted. He did it while the food was still in their mouth. His anger rose up against them. He put to death the strongest among them. He struck down Israel's young men. But even after that, they kept on sinning. Even after they had seen the miracles he did, they still didn't believe. So he brought their days to an end like a puff of smoke. He ended their years with terror. 34. Every time God killed some of them, the others would look to him. They gladly turned back to him again. They remembered that God was their rock. They remembered that God Most High had set them free. But they didn't mean it when they praised him. They lied to him when they spoke. Their hearts were not true to him. They weren't afraid to the covenant. They weren't faithful to the covenant they made with God. But he was full of tender love. He forgave their sins and didn't destroy his people. Time after time, he held back his anger. He didn't let all of this burning anger blaze out. He remembered what they were, only a human. He remembered they were only a breath of air that drifts by and doesn't return. How often they refused to obey him in the desert. How often they caused him sorrow in that dry and empty land. Again and again, they put God to the test. They made the Holy One of Israel sad and angry. Look, it says, can God get angry? Yes, he has emotions. He gets angry. They didn't remember his power. They forgot the days he set them free from those who had beaten them up. They forgot how he had shown them his miraculous signs in Egypt. They forgot his miracles in the area of Zoan. They turned the rivers of Egypt into blood. The people of Egypt couldn't drink water from their streams. He sent large numbers of flies that bit them. He sent frogs that destroyed the land. He gave the crops to the grasshoppers. He gave their food to the locusts. He destroyed their vines with hail. He destroyed their fig trees with sleet. He killed their cattle with hail. Their livestock were struck by lightning. He brought great trouble on Egypt by pouring out his blazing anger. In his hot anger, he sent destroying angels against them. God prepared a path for his anger. He didn't spare their lives. He gave them over to the plague. He killed the oldest son of each family in Egypt. He struck down the oldest son in every house of the land of Ham. He brought his people out like a flock. He led them like sheep through the desert. He guided them safely and they weren't afraid. But the Red Sea swallowed up the enemy. He brought his people to the border of his holy land. He led them to the central hill country he had taken by his power. He drove the nations out to make room for his people. He gave to each family a piece of land to pass on to their children. He settled the tribes of Israel in their homes. 56. But they put God to the test. They refused to obey the Most High God. They didn't keep his laws. Like the people who lived before them, they turned away from him and they were not faithful. They couldn't be trusted. They were like a bow that doesn't shoot straight. They made God angry by going to their high places. They made him jealous by worshipping the statues in their gods. When God saw that the people were doing, he was very angry. He turned away from there completely. He deserted the holy tent at Shiloh. He left the tent he had set up among his people. He allowed the ark to be captured into the hands of his enemies. He sent the ark where his glory rested. He let his people be killed with swords. He was very angry with them. Fire destroyed the young men. The young women had no one to get married to. Their priests were killed with swords. Their widows weren't able to cry when the Lord woke up as if he had been sleeping. He was like a man walking up the deep sleep caused by wine.
He drove his enemies back, verse 66. He put them to shame that will last forever. He turned his back on the tents of the people of Joseph. He didn't choose to live in the tribe of Ephraim. Instead, he chose to live in the tribe of Judah. He chose Mount Zion, which he loved. And Judah, Jews, the descendants of Judah, Jewish people. He chose Mount Zion, where salvation comes from, which he loved. He built his holy place as secure as the heavens. He built it to last forever, like the earth. He chose his servant David. Hazrat Dawood, look at this now. He took him from the sheep pens. He was a shepherd. He brought him from tending sheep to be the shepherd of his people, Jacob, or Israel, as we read. He made him the shepherd of Israel, his special people. And ending with verse 72, David cared for them with a faithful and honest heart. With skilled hands he led them. So Hazrat Dawood cared for them with a faithful and honest heart. With skilled hands he led them. That's the end of 78 today.